I'm Basia Sokolowska and I'm taking you through my creative alphabet. Letter H stands for Homage, the title of this book and the title of my exhibition, which was presented last year in Torun in Wozownia Art Gallery, where I showed 4 projects, each of which was devoted to one artist that I feel particularly inspired by. These artists were Atkins, Georgia O'Keeffe, Louise Bourgeois and Agnes Martin. All women, none of whom I met, but I felt and I still feel that they were a very important presence in my art making and a great source of knowledge and inspiration for me. In this book, I talk about the dynamics of how the Homage project, which took me 10 years to make, evolved. And here I would like to talk about the reasons behind making it. In 2009, this book was published, the book of my art from 1990 to 2006, called Dark Passage. And at that point I realized that it's a closed chapter, that the projects that I made in those times are sort of fully contained, and that I will be doing other things. I will not go back to it. It's actually something that I needed to do, and it's done and over, and I can move on. And I thought about saying thank you to the artist who inspired my work and motivated me and provided great support. Of course, I indirectly through their writing and art and all forms of documentation which they left behind, which I looked at and I learned from, whose work and life sort of resonated with the way I am and the way I go about making art. They are all women, and I think that was also very important. This is not to say that I don't admire male artists, and I learn from them too, and I look into their art and their way of working, but somehow I felt that because being a woman is culturally so defined, that making art as a woman is a little bit different, and it's much closer to my heart, and it's much more useful for me. Well, I'm not the only one who needs role models and supports of other artists. I found this sticky note. It's one of many sticky notes floating around. I just write things on them and then put them somewhere, and then they come out from drawers and books and pockets and all kind of places. And this one surfaced up a couple of weeks ago, and it's got a very useful quote for today's talk. It's a quote from a letter of the young Yayoi Kusama, one of the most recognizable artists, contemporary artists in the world, which she wrote to Georgia O'Keeffe, who at the time was a very famous, well-established, old female artist living in New Mexico. She wrote, though I feel I'm very far away from where you are, and only on the first step of a long, difficult life as a painter, I should like to ask you if you would kindly show me the way to approach this life. Well, this is a very big ask, especially to put down in a letter how to approach a life. I'm not sure if Georgia O'Keeffe responded to this letter written by a young Japanese artist from New York, but I think the idea is contained in this letter very well, that it's really something that a young artist needs to know, needs guidance in how to approach not art, but a life as an artist. And that was my case. I never wrote a letter to any of my role models, but I looked at their art and their life and really looked at it very, very closely and drew a lot of kind of strength and motivation and inspiration from it. So in a sense, making this project with 4 chapters devoted to my favorite artists, not just my favorite artists who provided a lot of guidance for me, is also a recognition that we're not really working in isolation from the past. The Polish film director once said, Krzysztof Kieślowski once said that the only thing you can call your own is your own life, that everything has already happened. It's so true in photography and in art. We could say that everything is derivative, and derivative is not a good word. Original is a good word in our Western culture, but I think it's greatly overrated in the way, in the value, in the recognition of the value of art making, which is really in the experience of making art rather than coming up with something that the world hasn't seen yet. And I think it's a good thing. It's a very sort of reassuring thing and a wonderful thing to have that great pool of inspirations and support and artworks that were there before us, which are a gateway through which we came, in the same way we are a gateway to the future, that perhaps my art will serve as a source of inspiration for some other artists. And in that spirit, I'm making these videos.